Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to more discussion on Fallout 5. I hope you're doing well today, and we're going to focus on one thing and one thing only today, and that is the in-game HUD or the in-game interface. And I think you're going to be surprised at how the in-game HUD has changed over the different versions of Fallout. I certainly, in analysing this, I've had quite a few pleasant surprises that I didn't realise, and yeah, we're just going to work through all the different versions of the HUD, break it down, and then see which one you would prefer to have in Fallout 5. Should be good, let's do it. So, the in-game HUD, all that information that you need to play the game, whether it be where the enemies are, what level the enemies are, how much health the enemies have, what direction you're going, where the quests are. Oh, there's just so much you have to know. The ammunition count of your gun, the condition of your gun, there's all kinds of stuff that's going on in the HUD. And yeah, Bethesda and the Obsidian have done a very, very good job at providing you a fairly comprehensive and clean interface in the game. Or so I thought, but we will see as we go through. All is not as it seems when it comes to the HUD. I actually had the pleasure of breaking down all the different versions of the HUD, and yeah, it's surprising how much information that has been crammed in there. So, without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start breaking down for Fallout 3, and then we'll work through each game, and we'll show you exactly what the HUD looks like. And yeah, hopefully you can make a determination on what you want to see in the next version. So there's two versions of the HUD in-game. There's the one when you're just wandering around exploring and looking for things, and then there's the second one when you're in combat. Now, I'm going to focus in on the combat HUD today, mainly because I think that's where the most information is, and you'll see as we go through the different games just how much information is in that HUD when you're being attacked. And even when you're not being attacked, there's a lot of stuff that you have at your fingertips that you need to play the game. So let's have a look at the very clean hub. Here we are, we're just about to enter one of the vaults in Fallout 3. Very clean hub, we're not in combat. This is pretty much how it will look a lot of the time in game. And let's just break it down a bit. So here we are being attacked by a super mutant in the vault, one of the vaults in Fallout 3. And you can see the interface is pretty clean. It's pretty clean. Everything is on that bottom level. And yeah, there's nothing really obscuring your view as such. Now, what I did find as I went through this process is the fact that, and you're going to see it in Fallout 4 and 76, where the aim-in dynamics is a little bit different. And so the weapons actually fill up a fair bit of your screen, and I'm sure that has a fairly large part to play in why the HUD has evolved over time. But let's get back to this one. You can see in that bottom left hand corner we have our HP indicator, and also that will generally indicate if you've got RADs, how much RADs you've got. Under that is a compass. And in between the compass and the HP, you can just see it there. It's kind of some red bars, and that's your enemy indicator. And then right on the bottom there, you'll see there's like an arrow pointing up, and that means that it's indicating something to find or a quest. Generally, if that's the current quest you're on, that arrow will be a full green color. Now, I haven't done a breakdown for Fallout New Vegas, and the reason I haven't done a breakdown for Fallout New Vegas is basically because the HUD is exactly the same. If you know about New Vegas, Obsidian did build New Vegas, but they were given the Fallout 3 engine, so the HUD is exactly the same. The only difference is that those bars are coloured yellow or a gold colour rather than a green colour. Okay, so moving into the middle part of the HUD, you can see the enemy name clearly marked there and how much health the enemy that you're fighting has. Very useful information. And you can see as you're shooting your weapon, those little bars start to shrink into the middle from both sides. And yeah, pretty cool interface, but not much more to say about that one. And then thirdly, we move on to the right hand side. So there's a lot actually going on across on the right hand side. You can see it's got your action point status. I guess that affects your ability to do VATS and whatnot, and that will fill up over time if you've diminished it. There's also the condition of the current weapon that you're using and the degradation and the CND, and then right next to that is the amount of ammo that you have and number of shots in your magazine. So 5 bullets in your magazine, 211 ammunition in reserve. So Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, pretty straightforward kind of interface, but there's a lot going on those bars, and it's not always, I guess you use them when you need to, but when you're in combat, it kind of, sometimes it's hard to try and process a lot of that information, and I think that's why they changed this up a little bit in Fallout 4, and we'll have a look at that now. And the Fallout 4 interface is a little bit different. As you can see, they've changed a few things around just to kind of break out the information a little bit more so that you can quickly glance at it when you're in combat or whatever you're doing. And yeah, it's a little, I think it's a little bit easier to read the way that they've broken it down here. The main difference here is that the health points and the rods are in one bar, and you can see they've moved a lot of the other elements across the bottom of the screen. And yeah, so your health points and rods are there. Obviously that bar fills up with red as you get irradiated. Then in the middle, they've moved the compass to the middle and broken it out from that HP bar, which I think is much better. And that shows a whole lot of stuff. Shows your quest markers, your enemy markers, you know, the kind of locations on the map, your direction on the map, etc. Then we have an interesting change on the right hand side there. Obviously your ammo count is still there. Obviously there's 20 bullets in the magazine and 446 in reserve. But you see that little pill down at the bottom, and basically that's an indicator of your status, and it links into the Pit Boy. So what that's saying there, that little pill indicates that I've got mole rat disease, unfortunately. And if you use a stim, the little stimming icon will come up in that corner for a brief second as you're stimming, and then it will disappear. So that really is just showing if you have any diseases or any buffs or anything like that in that corner. And then finally, they've moved the enemy health up to the top of the screen. And yeah, so it just shows you the type of enemy, legendary stalking trapper in this sense, and the amount of health he has as you're shooting. So yeah, so there's a lot of information there, but it's been broken into little segments, so I think it's easier to digest and just glance at as you're playing the game. Now, you might say, G4, where is the AP bar? Well, I'm about to show you some footage here. The AP bar only appears when you go into VATS like this, and then when you come out of VATS, it'll kind of linger on your screen for a few seconds and then it disappears. So I think that's a really nice addition where they've kind of thought about it and thought, well, we really don't need that on the screen permanently. We only need it when you're in a certain situation. And so they've redesigned it slightly. So let's move on to the last HUD we're going to look at, and that is the Fallout 76 HUD. And boy, oh boy, have they upped their game on this one. I didn't realise till I started breaking it down a little bit just how much information is included in the Fallout 76 HUD. So let's look at our clean picture, and then we'll start to break it down. So here we are in the 76 HUD. I will brighten this up a little, and you can see we have a Scotch Wanderer coming to say hello. But boy, oh boy, there's a lot going on here, more than I even realised, to be honest. So let's start breaking it down. Obviously, the HP, the health points, and the RADs are working in exactly the same way, so that's good. As is the compass and the quest markers and all that good stuff, the enemy indicators, that's all working exactly the same. You'll notice the action points are back on this HUD, and the main reason for that is that 76 is a little bit different in how it plays. It's what Todd Howard described as a kind of soft-core survival game. So you're constantly having to manage both your hydration and your food levels. So hence why the action points are back there, because as you can see, those little indicators, you're constantly having to keep an eye on the status of that and manage it appropriately. So your enemy status bar is up the top like it is in 4. It is much smaller than it was in Fallout 4, and there's a new indicator. You can see there is an enemy level indicator there, which is kind of interesting and something I want to talk about when I come up, and I will come up with a kind of hypothetical HUD shortly. But yeah, suddenly the enemies have a level on them. And then finally we go to the ammo count is there as normal, and we have current quest selected up in that top right hand corner, and I like that. I think that's a good addition to the game. I'd like something that you could use to just cycle that on and off, just so it cleans the HUD up. But I do like having an indicator of what quest you're actually on the screen, and so that you know, and you can have as many of those as you like. You can actually have quite a few showing on the screen. So as you can see, compared to Fallout 4, there's a heck of a lot more going on, and certainly there's a heck of a lot more going on than there was with Fallout 3 in New Vegas. So yeah, the screens become busy, but I don't think it's cluttered. So there you go, that's the breakdown of each HUD. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on what elements you would like to see in your in-game HUD for Fallout 5. So what I thought I would do is I'd come up with a conceptual version of what the HUD might look like in Fallout 5. This is not based on anything other than I've looked at what they're doing with Starfield, I've looked at what they've done with other games, and this is, like I said, this is my version of it. It certainly is not come from Bethesda, I want to make that clear. So here's my go at the HUD, and you can tell the HUD doesn't look that much different, and that's because I don't think the HUD, especially in Fallout 4 and kind of 76, is too bad. I think it's perfectly okay. Let me just go through, because there are some subtle differences here. So the HP obviously on the left hand side is absolutely the same. No change there. We'll come back to the compass in a second. On the right hand side, what I'd like to see is a little icon for the gun that you have active. Now I saw this in Starfield, and I actually really like it. So we've got a little bit of a pistol there, 20 rounds in the magazine and 224 in reserve. And then you could have any of your little diseases or whatever you want to have there. If you have survival mode, you can have your food and your water icons next to the ammunition there. I've put a little mole rat disease icon there. But yeah, you could have all your little icons there. at the far right of the screen. Now I'd like to see the AP bar hidden the same as it is in Fallout 4, and it comes out when you need it, when you're doing VATS or whatever, so that's why it's not included on the screen right now. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I like the way they've done it in Fallout 4, to be honest. So yeah, the G4 logo won't be there. So you can see it's a concept, Fallout 5 HUD gaming for XP 2022. One thing that I did see in Starfield, I think it would be really beneficial to have is, you can see above the Deathclaw there, the Alpha Deathclaw, his health is actually linked to the character model. So he cleans up that top end of the screen, and so it would just follow him around. It might get a bit messy with multiple enemies, but I like the concept of that. And also you'll notice that Deathclaw also has a level on it, and I think that would be an interesting thing to do for Fallout 5, is have your enemies leveled and be able to see them clearly labeled. So they're the kind of subtle things that I'd like. I'd also like to see the quests on the screen, but I'd like to see something that allowed you to toggle it on or off. And you can see, ask the Deathclaw for some milk, and then we got to go and talk to Preston there. But I think that fits nicely if we could just have a switch that toggles it on off, so we can keep track of that. Be really nice. It just keeps the interface nice and clean. And then you can see the compass, and the compass hasn't really changed. It's the same as it ever has been, but I want to throw a little bit of a curveball in. So one of my thoughts, or one of my suggestions, is to completely get rid of the compass and put a mini map in. So I'm not sure how you feel about that. I'm not sure how I feel about that personally, but it could make for an interesting dynamic in the game. So there you go. There is my potential concept HUD for Fallout 5. What do you think about that? Is there anything that I've missed, or anything that you would add? Let me know in the comments down below. Now there is one last thing that I want to talk to you about, and it's around the Pip-Boy HUD and how that's displayed on screen. So traditionally this is what we're used to. We're used to having the arm and the Pip-Boy filling the whole screen. However, in 76 they did do something a little bit different, and you might miss it because it is quite subtle. So I'm going to bring up the picture now, and you can see here the HUD's on the screen, but it's very much off to the left hand side there, and you can actually see what's going on in front of you while you are looking at the HUD. So if there are enemies coming, you can actually exit the HUD pretty quickly and deal with them, and then go back to what you're doing. How do you feel about that? Actually, took me a while to get used to it in 76, but I actually don't mind it, because it does actually give you a advantage. There's nothing worse than being in your Pip-Boy and somebody's chewing at your butt or trying to shoot you or doing something. So at least this way you can stay in your HUD, look around, and then exit the HUD and deal with them. So I'm really interested to know your comments on that one, and that will do it for today pretty much. That's been fairly comprehensive on the HUD. I've tried to cover it as much as possible, and I've tried to give you as much information as possible. I learned a lot, actually. I learned a lot of stuff that I just take for granted, and I play the game and I don't really pay a lot of attention to, and it surprised me, especially the 76 HUD, how much information you're actually gaining. Okay guys, thanks for watching, thanks for all the support on the series so far, and we'll catch you next time on Gaming for XP. We'll see ya.